Enter the world of authentic tales of betrayal and feelings. Please lend your support to this video and think about subscribing to True Infidelity Stories Emotions. Listen closely to this opening story. I am on the verge of revealing a profoundly unsettling and unexpected chapter from my life. During my time away at work, two of my closest friends ventured into the depths of the unknown alongside my wife. What deepens the mystery is her unexpected reaction to the whole situation. Join me as I explore the complexities of this challenging experience and reflect on the significant impact it has had on our lives. This is the story of my journey. Immerse yourself in the joy of witnessing it unfold. I am Todd, a blend of charisma and intelligence. I see myself in that light, and I uphold a strong sense of self-worth. I find myself flourishing in my role as a programmer at a leading commercial company. It's genuinely impressive that I can invest merely 50 minutes each week and still enjoy a substantial financial return for my endeavors. However, this does not suggest that I am idle during the other hours. Every day, I delve into the quest for fresh insights and adventures. I was the one who accomplished it, having delved into numerous motivational books and taken in the wisdom from discussions with the wealthy. I have, ultimately, risen from the depths of poverty. Therefore, I cherish everything that is mine. Every day, I am overwhelmed with appreciation for everything in my life. However, I consider my greatest achievement in life to be my wife, Judith, who is 4 years younger than me. She is 25, and I am 29. She is a model, involved in various advertising campaigns, and has amassed a significant following on social media. She usually discovers happiness in her life. Judith embodies a radiant elegance, her figure illuminated by the sun, featuring beautifully shaped thighs and a harmoniously balanced bust. However, she had not always been like that. Her life changed dramatically after we met. At first glance, she seemed like an ordinary cashier in a store, lacking any visible ambitions or dreams. Yet, I noticed that spark within her and took measures to nurture it. Even during that period, I upheld a commendable standing. Even though my earnings weren't as significant as they are now, I still managed to lead a comfortable lifestyle. It seems that Judith made the choice to step away from her role as a cashier. I came across an exceptional producer who significantly contributed to her success on social media. The combination of our earnings now opens the door to a life of luxury. This might be perceived as a story of victory and other minor details. Honestly, I held that belief too, until life handed me a stark reality check. I have friends from school, Philip and Alan, who were by my side until a certain point. At 18, we set forth on our entrepreneurial journey with our inaugural venture. An ice cream stand, however, quickly fell into chaos. 6 months later, we set out on an exciting new journey, introducing hot dogs to the world. Yet, after 5 months, we were left with no choice but to bring it to a close. Further attempts ensued, but each one ultimately fell short. At 21, I experienced a deep understanding that change was essential. I set out on an exploration into the world of IT, a domain that was completely new to me. Still, I recognized it held a promise of what lay ahead. My friends brushed off my idea, insisting it was a futile endeavor. Confronting the tangible aspects of life is of utmost importance. Carve out your unique journey. Do not labor for someone else's dream. I found myself in conflict with them, propelled by my insight. It became evident to me that refining my abilities as an expert would set the stage for initiating my own venture in the future. Thus, it revealed itself in this manner. Philip and Alan remained steadfast in their pursuit of building a business. At present, they operate a single fast food stand that has thrived for 3 years, yielding a profit that they share equally. However, when compared to my earnings, their profits are nothing more than insignificant sums. Instead of exploring new horizons and advancing, they remain steadfast, akin to stubborn sheep. By consistently targeting the same spot, they successfully reached their objective. However, I question whether it truly meets their initial expectations. Despite having the resources to traverse different nations, enjoy opulent attire and cars, relish exquisite meals at upscale restaurants, and be wed to a woman of remarkable beauty, these two stayed in the city, contending with the demands of their daily existence. I bear no ill will towards them for choosing not to join me. The choice belonged solely to them. I find myself aligning with their viewpoint. Our connection remains, though it no longer carries the richness it once did. Visitors are invited to my home on weekends, where we can unwind on my leather couch, dive into video games, and exchange thoughts on the little nuances of daily life. Despite our diverse viewpoints, we cultivated a strong connection and often convened, mainly at my home. They expressed their admiration for my opulent home. Yet, I failed to realize immediately that my wife was equally enchanting them. For me, the meetings with Philip and Alan seemed more like a distraction. They were modest individuals without the benefit of formal education. The time spent in their presence was truly enjoyable, as we shared a beer and indulged in charming conversations about various trivial matters. I held back from displaying my talents in their company. Conversely, I took the initiative to lower my guard and engage with them on a more personal level. Judith always supported my wish to enjoy a few evenings each week surrounded by friends. She cultivated her own group of friends and often enjoyed their company. Judith and I welcomed the essence of hospitality, making certain that our home radiated warmth and was always alive with the presence of others. One evening, as the sun sank beneath the horizon, bathing the street in a warm glow, I was stopped by a neighbor named Jimmy on my way home. He occupied the role of a director. He stopped me in my tracks and asked, "Todd, how are you? I trust this won't seem intrusive, and I hope you don't perceive it as prying, but I've noticed something quite unusual during your absence. A Ford often makes its way to a location near your home." I managed to take a photograph of it. I took hold of his phone and started to examine the photograph. The photograph showcased a white Ford, the car owned by my friend Philip. "Thank you for your consideration, Mr. Jefferson. I will strive to reveal the essence of the situation." It was truly a delight. "Could I kindly ask for a small favor from you? Could you please keep an eye on my house while you're at home during the day? If you come across the car, I would appreciate it if you could inform me." "Completely acceptable. May your night be filled with tranquility." "I truly value it." "May your night be filled with tranquility." This was clearly a signal, one that required careful consideration. What might be the reason my friend is spending time with my wife while I'm at work? With this question lingering in my mind, I entered the house, where Judith greeted me warmly. She appeared in a flowing white robe, and without saying a word, began, "Darling, I'm so glad you're home. A charming surprise is in store for you. It is crucial to pull on this string." I pulled at the string, and before me unfolded a stunning creation. Judith had donned a captivating new costume. The ensemble evoked the image of a nurse. "You appear to be experiencing a bit of fatigue, but I have a remedy to propose. First, kindly take a shower, and then I will be looking forward to your arrival in my medical office." I quickly showered, and Judith and I experienced a night together that was truly unforgettable. The exhilarating unpredictability carried my thoughts away, allowing me to wholeheartedly welcome the moment with open arms. The next day, I was free from any responsibilities, which allowed Judith and me to fully enjoy our time together. It occurred to me that perhaps yesterday, Philip stopped by to collect something he had forgotten and only stayed for a short while. That was the conviction I yearned to embrace. The thought of Judith betraying my trust, especially with someone I regarded as a friend, was one I hesitated to contemplate. As the day unfolded, Judith and I found ourselves immersed in a routine that felt strikingly ordinary. With the evening drawing near, we opted to relax by enjoying a film together. However, our plans were unexpectedly interrupted by Alan, who voiced his wish to invite us to a particular location. "My dear friend, shall we embark on an adventure to the club this evening? It promises to be a delightful experience. You're welcome to bring Judith along." I declined the invitation, not only because Judith and I had our own plans for the evening, but also due to my disinterest in clubbing, especially with Judith, who would probably find it tedious since Philip and Alan were without partners. Philip sought to build relationships and eventually married, but he fell into infidelity, resulting in his wife's departure. Alan's attempts at romance were plagued by bad luck, with his longest relationship barely lasting a year, I regularly suggested to them that if they wanted to go out together, they should consider finding girlfriends. They would simply nod in silence, conveying their assurance that they would find someone soon. I presented Alan's proposal to Judith and noted the disappointment that flickered across her expression. She appeared to yearn for adventure and a taste of joy, but I remained mostly apathetic to her aspirations. The next day, I made my way to work. I pressed my lips against Judith's and then took my leave. At noon, my neighbor Jimmy contacted me to share some information. "Todd, it seems there's a car parked near your house again. I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I felt compelled to reach out and share this with you. Thank you very much. Jimmy, how long will you be at home?" "From the break of day until the fall of night." "Indeed, quite satisfactory. Could you please give me a call when you see that the car has left?" "Certainly. I will provide you with updates as they come." As we said our goodbyes, a surge of doubt enveloped me once again. 5 hours had passed since Jimmy's call, and during that time, I became enveloped in a fog of doubt. Suddenly, the phone started to ring. "Todd, the vehicle is on its way out." 2 men made their entrance. I conveyed my appreciation to Jimmy and concluded the call. In this instant, assurance held its dominion. During my absence, my 2 friends paid a visit to my wife. At first, I thought it was just Philip, but I've realized that Alan played a role too. At first, I tried to soothe my thoughts with the idea that maybe they were planning a surprise for my birthday. Still, my birthday lingered just out of reach, a mere 4 months away. Was it not somewhat hasty? To prevent any unnecessary concern, I decided to contact a friend, asking for some video cameras and a listening device. After wrapping up my workday, I collected the equipment. He asked about my necessity for it, and I conjured a justification, asserting that it wasn't meant for my use. As I made my way down the road home, my hands trembled with a noticeable tension. A profound sense of shame washed over me at the mere idea of spying on my wife, as I was entirely certain she would never betray my trust. Upon entering the house, I was greeted by Judith's radiant smile. Following a sumptuous dinner, we made our way to bed, where our connection deepened once again. During this time, I did not notice anything unusual about her. Often, when a woman becomes involved in infidelity, her behavior and character undergo a significant transformation. Yet my wife was, as ever, truly extraordinary. The next morning, Judith got ready for a promotional video shoot, and I was there with her. A bag filled with the neglected video cameras lay on the backseat of my car. Throughout the journey, Judith posed questions about them. "What treasures do you hold in your hands, dear child?" "It is composed of diverse elements drawn from my career experiences. It was essential to get rid of it. I will take care of it later, after I leave." Through this declaration, I achieved 2 goals at once. As Judith immersed herself in her tasks, I made my way back home. Time drifted by unnoticed, and I found myself oblivious to the fact that 2 hours had elapsed. Nonetheless, the cameras were carefully placed, one in the bedroom, another in the living room, the third in the kitchen, and the fourth outside. I completely forgot that I was supposed to pick up Judith. As I stepped out of the house, I noticed a white Ford pulling up, and from it, Judith and Philip stepped out. "I made 20 attempts to contact you. Where have you been disappearing to, Todd?" Judith commented, and I turned my attention to my phone. Without question, there were 20 missed calls from her. I extended my apology, but Judith simply passed by me without a word. In that moment, Philip approached. "My friend, you have indeed made a considerable mistake, and I found it necessary to take control of the situation myself. I sincerely apologize. I found myself captivated by another pursuit." A pressing call arrived, requiring my focus to address a project issue. "All is well. No need for concern. I'm more than happy to help, particularly considering all the times you've been there for me." After bidding our goodbyes, I made my way back inside the house. The whole evening unfolded in a quiet atmosphere. Judith was unhappy with me for not picking her up, so I tried to convey my apologies. "A promise was made for you to come and get me. What prevented you from attending?" A pressing order had come in. Please grant me your forgiveness, if you can. In the future, mercy will not be an option. We shared a tender embrace before drifting off to sleep. A tide of embarrassment surged within me at the mere idea of doubting her in any way. I struggled to come to terms with the idea, doubting that Jimmy, the elderly gentleman, had simply let his imagination roam without restraint. Nonetheless, since he provided me with photos, I felt it was essential to confirm everything on my own. As the night wrapped the world in a blanket of silence and Judith rested serenely, I felt an irresistible urge to unlock her phone and delve into her messages. There were no indications of anything out of the ordinary within them. The device shone with an immaculate brilliance. I surrendered to slumber, my thoughts tranquil and my spirit light. 2 weeks have passed since I installed cameras in my home. While I labored at my tasks, my thoughts drifted back to home, where Judith was, and everything seemed to be in order. Everything was perfectly in order, with not a hint of anything out of the ordinary. Following that night, I made a commitment to scrutinize Judith's phone again, only to find it lacking any damning evidence. No signs of betrayal or any communication with my acquaintances are evident. Everything was in perfect order. We shared moments with Philip and Alan, relishing the joy of each other's presence. Judith worked hard, and together we journeyed into the city, discovering a rich array of fascinating places, eventually settling into a peaceful life. On what appeared to be a typical day at the office, I decided to examine the footage captured by the cameras. I had already begun to feel the weight of this task pressing down on me. Every time I confronted the truth that my quest would bear no fruit, it felt completely pointless. Other thoughts started to haunt my mind. What if Judith finds the camera and thinks I'm observing her? Questioning her reliability? As I peered through the lens, I noticed Judith as she flung the door wide open. To my astonishment, I engaged the outdoor camera and observed a white Ford parked near my home. Philip and Alan lingered on the porch, the atmosphere enveloping them in a serene sense of expectation. Judith greeted my friends with a friendly smile. They entered the space. I removed the listening device that had been subtly hidden beneath the coffee table in the living room. Judith climbed the staircase to the bedroom, as Philip and Alan took off their shirts and made themselves comfortable on the couch, their bare chests revealed. Judith underwent a captivating metamorphosis within the room, unveiling a seductive costume that had been hidden away in the depths of the wardrobe. The exact attire she had worn for me only the night before. I took in every detail, my eyes steady and focused. In that moment, I determined the path I would take concerning them. The time had come to rid ourselves of the waste. In the most straightforward manner, I contacted a person with an untraceable number, whose identity is still unknown, but for the purpose of this story, we will call him Mr. Keller. He possessed a unique talent for discreetly managing waste removal whenever it was needed. I contacted Mr. Keller, laying out the whole situation, my voice trembling, the phone almost slipping from my hand. We will be here, ready to welcome you at the payment location. Once the payment is completed, the vehicle will head to your home to collect the trash. The conversation was brief, and the cost for this service was significant. I needed to rush to the payment location. Fortunately, I discovered enough cash in my car to cover this service. I decided to watch the footage and found my wife, already on her knees, catering to my friend's wishes. A surge of nausea enveloped me at the realization. Had I been unaware, I would have gone home that night and embraced her gently. I drove with wild disregard, as if I had completely abandoned my own identity. A shiver ran through me, and the feeling of losing consciousness hovered threateningly in the distance. A tide of grief enveloped me, leaving a profound ache within, and a solitary tear slipped down my cheek. It was utterly baffling to me how my friends from school and my wife could betray me in such a way. I arrived quickly at the location, an abandoned building. A letter lingered, anticipating my journey ahead. I meticulously concealed the envelope brimming with cash under a stone and sent off a message. Eggs have been laid, in the most literal sense. A message arrived for me in under a minute. My little ones have soared away from the nest. I rushed home, leaving the car nearby, and started to observe from a distance. As I looked at my phone, it buzzed with a call from Jimmy, letting me know about a white Ford parked close to my house. I reassured him that everything was fine. I switched on the cameras again and witnessed two men enjoying the presence of my wife on my leather couch. It felt like I was watching a movie crafted for a more discerning viewer. Once again, the pain coursed through me, but I sensed a flicker of hope that justice would soon emerge. Merely 10 minutes after I arrived, a white van pulled up outside. Three imposing figures, dressed in all black and wearing balaclavas, suddenly invaded my home. A single strike from one thug knocked Philip down to the ground. Unconscious, the second silenced Alan, while the third muted Judith. They collapsed onto the ground, securely restrained, with hoods shrouding their faces, and were quickly spirited away in a van that sped into the darkness. Through the lens of the cameras, I witnessed everything unfold and was enthralled by their extraordinary professionalism. The task was completed in about 40 seconds. All that was left was to patiently wait for a few days until the results came in. I decided to reach out to my neighbor, thinking he might have seen something relevant. Fortunately, he had observed absolutely nothing. As I made my way back to work, the evening shadows stretched longer along my path home. An unsettling urgency drove me to contact the police, sharing the troubling news that my wife had vanished. Before that moment, I had broken and discarded the phones of Judith and my companions, making them untraceable. The next day, a tow truck arrived to remove the white Ford from my property. I informed the authorities that, as per my usual practice, I returned home only to find that my wife had disappeared without a single clue left behind. Neighbors in the area shared their observations, confirming that the white Ford frequently approached my home while I was away. To my surprise, I found out that it wasn't only Jimmy who had noticed the car close to my home. The registration under Philip's name positioned him as the main suspect. Initially, there were uncertainties regarding my involvement, but after reaching out to my employer, it became clear that I was not absent on the day of the incident. Throughout the investigation, I carefully transferred all the camera recordings onto a disk and hid it with utmost precision. Days later, an anonymous video surfaced, showcasing the haunting image of three bodies being carried to their final resting place. The video captured their removal from a van, their eyes, hands, and feet restrained in an empty field. All three wept and pleaded for mercy, and I found it rather amusing to watch, as my main condition was that no one should meet their end. Left alone in the expansive desert, their hands unrestrained yet tethered by an unvoiced directive, they were instructed to stay motionless for an hour. After that, the vehicle left, and their destiny rested entirely in their own hands. They were transported in a van from Nevada to Texas, and at that moment, I felt a sense of indifference toward the outcome of their return. A month later, the investigation reached an impasse, and the detective suggested that my wife had probably run away with Philip, caught up in a secret affair. I welcomed his viewpoint. Alan existed in a shadowy realm, unseen by those around him, lacking the warmth of parental guidance or the companionship of a partner. The venture they had built together lay in ruins, neglected for a month, abandoned to the passage of time. I chose not to seek a divorce, as it would surely raise suspicions. I decided to enlist the help of a lawyer, marking the start of my journey. If Judith does not come back within a few months, we would have valid reasons to pursue a divorce due to her absence. A month later, I received a summons to the police station for a session of identification questioning. Before me stood two men and a woman, all encapsulated within the boundaries of a single photograph. Initially, I struggled to recognize my wife and two friends within the crowd. They seemed to have aged 2 decades beyond their actual years, and I found it rather amusing. They emerged in worn, ragged clothing, emaciated and generally in a condition of chaos. I identified all three and asked the investigator about their findings and present whereabouts. He noted that in Texas, a duo of bear marauders robbed a gas station, seized another individual's vehicle, and raced off into the abyss. Exactly 24 hours later, the vehicle was found abandoned by the roadside. They chose a vehicle that had run out of fuel, making it impossible for a prolonged getaway. In the end, they found themselves restrained by handcuffs, now facing the reality of their confinement. I exhaled slowly, contemplating that, at the very least, they continue to exist. I was completely taken aback by this outcome. I held the conviction that they had the insight to find their way back home intact and unharmed. In a moment of utter desperation, they chose to delve into unlawful endeavors. A chilling wave swept through me as I faced the disturbing truth that these people had been woven into the fabric of my life for quite some time. Still, I experienced no regret for their plight. Truly, who could muster any sympathy for them? I adeptly maneuvered through the complexities of securing a divorce. The journey was anything but simple. At last, I triumphed, seizing my liberation. I journeyed to Texas, resolute in my mission to face each individual who had wronged me, meeting their gaze head-on. All three seemed completely disconnected from the world around them. However, the most amusing part was that none of them even suspected I was the mastermind behind it all. They never considered the possibility that it could be payback for their betrayal. A sense of melancholy filled my heart as they continued to be oblivious to the burden of their wrongdoing towards me. I discovered comfort in staying on the periphery. As I looked at these individuals, they seemed entirely unfamiliar to me. They were lost spirits, drifting through the world. As I faced Judith with the unsettling thought of her potential betrayal, she replied gently, asserting that she had never engaged in such an act. I offered a smile before turning to depart. I genuinely looked forward to a challenge. I envisioned their return, hoping they would realize it was I who had guided them to the desert. Yet, they unveiled their fragility and naivety, only succeeding in sinking deeper into an abyss of their own making. I simply offered them an opportunity to uncover their authentic selves, to showcase their conduct under pressure. However, they exposed their lack of courage by choosing to partake in unlawful activities instead. Although I cannot assert how I might have reacted in their situation, I feel compelled to share this. This kind of situation would have never crossed my path. I deeply value the individuals around me, and I place a strong emphasis on sincerity in every exchange I have. Yet, if someone chooses to betray my trust, I will not stay silent. I will move forward with unwavering resolve. I have moved to Florida and plan to live here for at least a year. If I were to find a girlfriend, it would certainly be a positive development. If that's not the case, that's absolutely okay too. I have embraced a more laid-back attitude toward life. I have ample resources to lead a comfortable life well into my later years, enabling me to indulge in my every desire. I have a sharp mind and a thoughtful nature. I am navigating a transformative journey, and I aspire for everyone who comes across my narrative to initiate their own journeys of development, regardless of their situations, and to make thoughtful choices for themselves. When life throws its turmoil at you, grab a rake and organize the disorder. Waste belongs in the bin, not in your life. Thank you for engaging with my story. Thus, we arrive at the end of this narrative. The story developed in a way that held our attention, uncovering depths we had not foreseen. We would be keen to receive your insights. How long do you think the main character's wife has been unfaithful with her friends? What circumstances drove the wife to betray her husband by becoming involved with his friends? Did the protagonist deliver justice to his tormentors in a manner that was appropriate, or might a more forgiving approach have been justified? The belief persists that the wife had been disloyal to the protagonist for a prolonged time, skillfully hiding her feelings, akin to the way his friends did. His wife was unfaithful with unsettling frequency. It is our belief that we can contemplate a period of roughly 1 year since the wife's initial act of betrayal against her husband. The reason for the betrayal is quite clear. The girl who rose from humble beginnings quickly gained all the material benefits. What choices awaited her? The husband labors diligently, and his adventures offer a captivating experience. The question arises about who was the first to initiate it. We firmly believe that the girl showed initiative, although it's likely that her friends may have played a role in encouraging her too. It appears they were engulfed by envy towards the protagonist, striving to compensate for their own inadequacies. The protagonist chose a harsh outcome. While it might appear severe, he was convinced that his actions were warranted. The video illustrates his act of discarding the garbage, revealing both his regret and a sense of relief that accompanies this decision. Nonetheless, we assert that all actions might have been undertaken with more compassion and in accordance with legal standards. Another tale unfolds. After more than 3 decades of marriage, my father turned his back on my mother. TW melancholy. I am in desperate need of help in the frigid temperature of 22 degrees Fahrenheit. At a young age, my mother married the love of her life, facing numerous challenges from her in-laws while also striving to gain my father's approval from her own parents. Throughout that period, she found herself at odds with everyone, firmly asserting that he could never betray her trust. The bond was crafted in the embrace of tender, youthful love. My older sibling and I viewed their marriage as perfect. Their love was profound, with each moment filled with heartfelt expressions of their devotion to each other. Minor conflicts arose, but they consistently discovered a means to settle them. We expected to discover an individual who would align with our father's expectations to become our future companion. My mother devoted herself to the role of a stay-at-home mom, making certain that we were nurtured with the right values and surrounded by love. In spite of her steadfast dedication, she faced considerable bias from her in-laws regarding her decisions. My mother has received a diagnosis of chronic depression, and for the past 15 years, she has also been enduring migraines and cervical pain. Her health had been steadily declining, yet recently, a noticeable improvement has emerged. She wrestles with her anger and occasionally finds it difficult to let go of control over every aspect of her life. She has recently endured the deep sorrow of losing both her parents and now depends financially on my father. My father occupies a role that requires him to travel often, yet he is the most loving person to all of us, giving everything he can and more. He has never touched another person in aggression. For a considerable duration, he stood as the sole provider. He has demonstrated extraordinary commitment to my mother, even in times when her clarity wavered, and she voiced sentiments of feeling unloved. She consistently finds herself shouldering the blame, grappling with guilt after expressing her anger towards me or my sister. In the current moment, my mother has come across Facebook messages and is completely devastated, constantly crying and saying, "I can't believe it." She feels a profound sense of betrayal, having invested her complete trust in him without ever once probing into his phone or social media. She has surrendered to her ailment, contemplating mortality and the prospect of reuniting with her father, forsaking nourishment and endlessly staring into the abyss. In that moment, he communicated to her that such actions are routine and not especially noteworthy, implying that her response was overblown, particularly given that she had yelled and harmed his phone. My sister and I, living in separate states, were called back to our hometown for a family conversation regarding this issue. I am left speechless and paralyzed, as the vision I once had of him has crumbled, leaving behind a profound sense of disgust. His nonchalant disregard for the situation as trivial only intensifies my inner conflict. At the same time, I find myself consumed by a profound anxiety about my mother resorting to extreme actions to resolve everything. I feel uncertain about what could be advantageous. I would greatly appreciate any guidance you can offer. Your presence is valued as we explore this chapter of true infidelity emotions. If these tales struck a chord with you, think about subscribing and turning on the notification bell. Brace yourself for the forthcoming storm of feelings that connections evoke. Your assistance is truly priceless. We are excited to share more enthralling narratives for your pleasure. Until we meet again, remember that every relationship reveals a story waiting to be discovered. Until we meet again, remember that every relationship tells a story worth delving into. Until we meet again, remember that every relationship reveals a story worthy of discovery. Until we meet again, remember that each connection